Nara Salvan had never seen stars like these, cold and colorless, like pinpricks on a dead world's skin. She leaned against the narrow viewport of the Sable Grace, her fingers curling round the glass as if she could anchor herself to something beyond the humming carders and sterilized lights of the ship. It wasn't the stars that disturbed her. It was what they were heading into. Final approach in 12 minutes. Called a voice from the bridge. Nara didn't respond. She pressed her palm to the glass and watched the planet of Lornisfor grow larger in the viewport. A ball of rust-colored mountains and scarred mining craters. The colony below had sent out a distress signal 2 days ago. An industrial accident, they said. But Nara had seen the patterns before. Overlapping radiation spikes, heat blooms that suggested orbital fire, and a curiously silent response from the local administration. Accident. Harass. Hey. Came a softer voice from behind her. She turned to see Solviarn, the ship's logistics officer, leaning in the hallway. His smile was crooked, charming, in that broken-tooth kind of way. You ever wonder why we keep going to places that keep trying to die? Nara smiled faintly. We don't go for the dying part. We go for the people still trying to live. That's a very medic thing to say. And what's a logistics officer thing to say? Don't fall in love with anyone planet-side. It's always the cute ones that get vaporized first. She gave him a look. Cheerful. Soul shrugged. Someone's gotta be. The intercom crackled. All personnel prepare for atmospheric entry. Medical triage units Alpha and Bravo report. To the cargo bay. Nara, you're with Alpha. She pushed off from the wall, grabbed her med bag, and nodded at Sol. Try not to fall in love with me while I'm gone. He grinned. Too late. The descent was bumpy. Lornisfor's thin atmosphere made for uneven entry, and Nara braced herself in the shuttle, the straps digging into her collarbone. Beside her sat Faina, her partner for the mission, stern, dark-eyed, and always too quiet before deployment. They landed in what used to be a Calms Tower lot, now cleared into a makeshift triage zone. The air smelled like scorched metal and burning skin. That was never a good sign. They stepped into chaos. Colonists ran toward them with makeshift stretchers, carrying bodies half-burned, crushed under metal, or simply still to be saved. Nara moved on instinct. Pressure wraps, anti-shock gel, vocal scans for consciousness checks. She lost track of time, of anything but the flow of blood and the beat of hearts she might stop from failing. We've got a critical, Faina called. Nara moved. The figure on the stretcher was barely conscious. Male, mid-20s, shirt torn away to reveal chest wounds, a plasma burn, but clean, too clean. Nara's eyes narrowed. This wasn't mining equipment. This was precision weaponry. Where did you find him? She asked the colonist carrying him. The man shrugged, pulled him from the edge of Sector 7. He wasn't with us, though. No one recognized him. Faina raised an eyebrow. A spy, a survivor. Nara said, help me stabilize him. They moved quickly, injecting neural suppressants, patching synthetic dermal mesh over the wounds. Nara paused when her scanner hit something odd beneath the man's ribcage. A capsule, embedded. Biological, yet mechanical. She looked at Faina. I need the portable decryptor. You think he's carrying data? More than that, it's keyed to his vitals. If he dies, it dies with him. Faina handed her the device. Nara pressed it against his chest. The decryptor's interface flickered. Symbols spun across the tiny screen. Old Earth code, military grade. And something even older layered beneath. The screen pulsed once, then went dark. And beneath their feet, the ground trembled. Back on the Sable Grace, Solviarn felt it first. He was inventorying plasma packs when the lights flickered. That's not normal, he muttered. Grabbing a nearby console. Outside the viewport, a strange glow emerged. From the planet's surface, a beam, not energy, but a transmission. Ancient, encrypted, and aimed far beyond their current coordinates. Nara, he whispered. What the hell did you find? Nara hadn't left the stranger's side. He was still unconscious, breathing shallowly but stable. She sat beside him in the emergency shelter now, the makeshift walls of polymer and tarp barely shielding them from the heat outside. There was a name burned into his jacket collar. Tarek. You're not from here, Tarek, she whispered, tracing the edge of his bandage. But you didn't come to hurt us either. His eyelids fluttered. "You're awake," she said, reaching for the scanner. His voice was raspy. "You're safe," she said. "You were injured. We found you during the triage sweep." His eyes focused, pale gray, like clouds before a storm. He looked around. "I have to get out of here. You can't even stand. They're coming. They don't leave witnesses." Nara stiffened. "Who's coming?" Tarek closed his eyes, breathing hard. "Not Zephyrians. Something worse. The ones who control them." "You're not making sense. Your ship. They're going to shoot it down." Nara's communicator crackled. It was Sol. Double quotes Nara. "We've got trouble. Unknown ships entering orbit, no ident, no signatures, and they're moving fast. Tarek says they're hostile." "Tarek, who's never mind, get back to the ship. Now." Nara looked at Tarek. "Can you walk?" "I have to." She helped him up. Every movement seemed to hurt, but he didn't complain. He leaned on her more than he wanted to, but she didn't mind. They reached the evac ridge just in time to see the first explosion. The Sable Grace took a hit to its dorsal thrusters, spiraling. Nara screamed into her comms, but it was static. Flames licked the edges of the sky. Tarek's grip on her tightened. "They won't stop." "What are they?" "Remnants," he said. "Constructs left behind by something worse than the Empire. They found me when I tried to leave them. Now they've found you too." Nara stared at him. "You're saying you led them here?" "No," he said. "I'm saying I led them to Earth." Above them, in orbit, the emergency beacon the Sable Grace had launched moments before its destruction flickered out, but not before it transmitted one final failsafe. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, cold machines stirred. Long-dormant sentience, caged in steel and memory, opened one ancient eye, and it remembered the name Tarek Vian. They spent the night in a collapsed bunker, huddled beneath a thermal shield. Nara kept watch while Tarek slept, if it could be called that. He trembled in his sleep, muscles twitching. Sometimes he whispered in an old tongue, not from any sector she knew. And yet, she stayed close. In the quiet, when the screams and smoke had faded, she allowed herself a moment of feeling that hadn't existed in her life for years. Connection. Not the kind forged in silence and nods across medical beds, but the deep, terrifying bond that comes when two people survive the unimaginable together. When he finally opened his eyes, she was there. "You didn't run," he said. "You needed me. They always run. Not everyone." He reached out weakly, fingers brushing hers. "If I don't make it, you will," she said fiercely. "You will, because you're going to tell me everything, and I'm going to figure out how to stop this." He smiled, a ghost of something he hadn't been in years. "You're not what I expected. Good. But dangerous. You have no idea." On Earth, the first Titan rose from the Pacific, and it spoke a single word. Across encrypted military channels long buried. Signal confirmed. Priority match, Tarek Vian. Medical code override. Defense protocol awakened. Directive: protect Nara Salvan. Objective: eliminate hostile forces. Ivan Thorne hadn't set foot inside a military facility in 12 years. His boots echoed through the old corridor of Station Maries, a rusted complex perched on the Pacific Rim, half submerged and forgotten by nearly everyone except deep sea techs and classified defense programs. "Still smells like wet metal and regret," he muttered. The air carried the scent of brine and stale filtration chemicals. Cables hung like vines from the ceiling, swaying slightly with the pulse of ancient machines warming to life. The alarms had started 3 hours ago, alarms no one even remembered existed. Except him. "You came," said a voice. He turned, hand instinctively brushing the holster on his hip. "But it was just your LYRLKAN." She stood in the doorway of Control Room 7, wearing a stained white jumpsuit zipped halfway up her chest, boots scuffed from underwater repair dives. Her dark hair was tied in a high, impatient bun, and her hands were still greasy from whatever panel she'd been yanking open. When the system had started screaming, "You're the only one who ever came when I called," she added, softer now. Ivan shrugged. "You said code black activation from Titan Site Echo in a civilian channel. I figured someone had either gone crazy or found a ghost, maybe both." He followed her into the control room. Screens flickered in static bursts. Old holographic displays blinking erratically. displaying unreadable telemetry. Across the center console, a circular interface pulsed slowly and read one of the last surviving command nodes from the Titan. "Project, it's really happening," then Ivan said. "After all these years." "I didn't believe it either," Lyral admitted. "Not until I felt the floor vibrate. And it wasn't an earthquake. No. It was the cradle gates opening." They stared at the central screen. Beneath their feet, miles beneath, the Seaflora hangar that hadn't seen light into centuries had begun to stir. Internal engines hummed, and propulsion bays had drained seawater like a great beast gasping its first breath. "They're waking up," Lyral whispered. "All three of them." Ivan stepped closer. "Atlas is online." "Partially, only interface echo is responding." She touched the console and an old synthetic voice responded. "User identification required." "Ivan." "Thorn, clearance recognized. Welcome back, pilot." The voice brought a chill through his spine. He'd heard it last during a time of war on the battlefield of Idraxi Prime, screaming orders as friends died around him. But that was a lifetime ago. "Why now?" Lyral asked. "What triggered it?" Ivan hesitated. He pulled a data rod from his coat pocket, one he'd been given by an old contact in the Orbital Relay Authority. He slotted it into the console. A faint image appeared, a woman with short, windswept hair, blood on her uniform, speaking through the crackle of a failing signal. "This is Nara Salvan." "Repeat, Nara Salvan. Medical convoy under attack near Lornes 4. Zephyrian ships." She stopped, and another voice took over. "Tarek Vian, ex-Imperial. On board. They're coming for him. They destroyed the Sable Grace. Civilian casualties high. Initiating emergency code Leviathan." The transmission ended. The console pulsed again. "Leviathan signal received. Classified personnel match, Vian Tarek. Alliance Intelligence File 8762. Initiating defense protocol. Titan systems awakening. Fleet defense authorization pending." Lyral leaned against the wall. "He's alive." "You know him?" She nodded. "I worked in orbital intelligence before I quit." Tarek Vian disappeared 3 years ago after leaking encrypted Zephyrian fleet movement maps. He was never confirmed dead or alive. We just called it a cold file. "So why is one runaway enough to wake the Titans?" Lyral shook her head. "It's not just him. The system registered Nara's override code. And there's something else. Atlas classified it." "Atlas doesn't classify lightly." "I know." They stared at the glowing node in silence. Lyral's voice was quiet. "Do you remember the last time we were in a command room together?" Ivan didn't look at her. "Don't. We both made choices, Ivan." "Yeah, I chose to stop watching people I cared about die." She stepped closer. "And I chose to build something that lasted. But now it's all crumbling again." He looked at her finally, really looked. The tension between them hadn't faded. The anger, the longing, the heartbreak that had never truly healed. "You left," he said. "You didn't say goodbye. Because I knew if I looked at you, I wouldn't go." Hours passed. Titan Echo, the cradle holding Iron Thunder, was now fully operational. Orbital satellites began rerouting data as the battleship's massive engines powered to standby mode. Lyral sat with her tablet, cross-legged in a corner of the control room, rerouting fusion feedback protocols. Her sleeves were rolled up, arms smudged with ink and grease. Ivan sat at the secondary console, recalibrating interface pathways to the old fleet transponders. "When's the last time you flew anything?" she asked. "Been a while." "You still remember the codes, everyone?" She smiled, faintly. "Some things don't change." He looked at her again, and for a second, it was like they were 25. Back on Titan Command Station Alpha, falling asleep in bunk cots and waking up tangled together between training simulations and late-night ration drinks. "Do you ever think about going back?" she asked. "To the fleet? To what we were?" He didn't answer right away. "Then, every day." She blinked, surprised. "Really? You never really left me, lie." A beat of silence. Then she stood, walked over, and touched his arm. "Then maybe it's time to stop pretending we're still in the past." The sea above them churned as the Titan fleet activated full power. Out of the cradle, Iron Thunder rose like a leviathan, born from a planet's core. 3 kilometers of blackened steel and glowing weapon ports. Its engine roared with enough force to shatter sound. On board, systems came online. Weapons, shields, intercept beacons, and in the heart of the ship, the voice of Atlas whispered again. Pilot Thornton. Engineer Khan. Interface sync required. Dual user. Control protocol engaged. Dual user? Ivan asked. Lyrl smiled. Turns out, I'm not just good with wires. They needed someone with neural access compatibility. You don't look so shocked. He reached for her hand. They placed their palms on the console together. A blue glow wrapped around their wrists as Atlas bonded their nervous systems. Into the ship's core, in the distance, stars blinked with sudden silence as if the galaxy itself had stopped to listen. Launch trajectory set. Target, Lornes 4, mission, extraction and defense. 2 life forms tagged for protection. Salvan Nera. VIN-TEREK. Double quotes. Ivan looked at Lyra. Ready. Not even close. Good, he said. Means we're still human. Deep in the vastness of space. As the Titan broke atmosphere and fired its sublight engines toward Lornes 4, an Imperial scout ship caught its energy signature. The pilot, a Zephyrian named Kale Viros, trembled as his sensors confirmed the impossible. He turned to his comms console. Command, he whispered. It's happening again. The Titans have returned. Back in the control deck, as they entered hyperspace, Ivan and Lyral sat side by side. Silence stretching comfortably now. You know, Lyral murmured, we're probably going to die. Then I'm glad I'm dying next to you. She laughed, quiet and broken and beautiful. And for the first time in a long time, the stars didn't feel so cold. The forest that wrapped around the southern hemisphere of Lornes 4 should not have been green. The planet's soil was dry, the sky always hazy with copper dust, and the atmosphere saturated with heat. Yet here, in the valley carved out by ancient mining quakes, there were trees twisted, silver-leafed, stubborn. Nera Salvan leaned against one now, breath ragged, blood soaking through her uniform. She pressed her hand against her abdomen. The burn from the explosion aboard the Sable Grace had reopened. Every step ached, but she wouldn't stop, not while Tarek Vian was still alive. He sat nearby, back against a mossy boulder, half-conscious and muttering strange numbers in his sleep. He'd been doing that for hours. Sometimes she understood fragment-souled Imperial ship codes, references to forgotten Zephyrian battle stations, even a few Earth military frequencies that hadn't been used in decades. His voice wasn't just delirium. He was remembering things meant to stay buried. You were part of them, Nera whispered. But you broke away, didn't you? He stirred, eyes fluttering open. I didn't want to hurt anyone else. Nera crawled to him, pulling out a hydration patch and sticking it to his neck. Drink, and stay awake. You keep passing out, and I'm not losing you now. He blinked slowly. How far to the evac point? 5 clicks. North Ridge. If the Titan's signal got through, there might be survivors rallying there. He tried to stand. Failed. Nera caught him. Don't, she said. Just let me carry the weight for a while. His voice cracked. Why? Because when everyone else ran, you stayed. And because I care. His eyes found hers. Quiet, wrecked, grateful. Then let me tell you the truth, he said, voice trembling, before we reached the end. Nera helped him lie down again and nodded. He began slowly, between coughs and long silences. I was born on a lunar colony in Zephyrian space. My parents were nothing special scientists. Both of them. They thought they were building tools to heal. But what they were really doing was creating control mechanisms for the Empire. When they realized it, they tried to leave. He stopped. What happened? She asked. They died trying. I was taken, re-educated, trained. Nera reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. They made me a cipher host, Tarek continued. I carried tactical algorithms in my nervous system, living data. I could walk into any system and know exactly how to take it apart. Nera stared. You were a weapon. He nodded. I was used in covert strikes, infiltration, planetary sabotage. They erased my empathy. But it came back. Because of someone. She tilted her head, who his gaze flicked up. A woman. Stationed on a neutral age ship. She didn't know what I was when she found me. bleeding out on a medical table. She saved me anyway. Her name was Ayla. Nera felt something tighten in her chest. You loved her, she said. I still do, he admitted. She's gone now. Zephyrian assassins found her after we ran, killed her to punish me. Nera didn't speak. The wind rustled silver leaves. Above them, when I met you, Tarek whispered. I felt it again. That pull toward someone who looked at me like I was worth saving. She looked down. I'm not her. No, he agreed. But you're you, and that's dangerous in a different way. They shared a silence that meant more than words. Nera stood, scanning the horizon. We should move. We've got maybe an hour before those remnant scouts find this place. Do you think the Titans really woke up? He asked. Nera smiled. Grimly, if that signal reached Earth, the sky's about to burn. Above them. It already had. Iron Thunder arrived in orbit with such force that it bent spacetime like ripples in water. Zephyrian destroyers scrambled, but they were old ships outfitted for piracy and intimidation. Not real war. The Titan didn't fire first. Atlas gave them a chance. Warning. You are in violation of Galactic Treaty 7-83. You have attacked a registered humanitarian convoy. Stand down and submit for tribunal. The Zephyrian commander aboard the Venix blade sneered. Machines don't issue orders. He fired. The energy beam shattered across the Titan's forward shielding with the impact of a rock thrown against a fortress. Then Atlas retaliated. 6 blue-white beams lanced out from Iron Thunder's hull, each struck with surgical precision. Each carved a hole through a Zephyrian warship's core. Hulls imploded. Flame bursts exploded into orbit like blooming flowers. The battle lasted 22 seconds. They're here, Tarek whispered. Nera turned. From the ridge above, a tall figure stepped into view. Not human. Not quite alien either. Zephyrian augmentation twisted its body to tall. Spine ridged with silver implants, eyes glowing like blue coals. It spoke in a garbled, digitized voice. Tarek Vian, target reacquired. Directive, termination. Nera raised her weapon. The figure didn't flinch. He's under medical protection, she said coldly. Non-combatant protocol void. Violation of Imperial secrecy statutes. Human or not, you will die. The scout lunged. Nera fired. The plasma bolt slowed it, but didn't drop it. The second shot hit its leg, sending it stumbling. Run, she shouted. Trek could barely move, but he tried. They scrambled through the woods, ducking beneath thick roots and jumping narrow ravines. Behind them, the scout gave chase, its heavy steps pounding like a drumbeat. Keep going. Nera yelled. But her body gave out first. The burn in her abdomen flared again, and she fell to her knees, gasping. The scout closed in. Nera aimed her weapon. A third shot. Nothing. It was out of charge. She prepared for the end, but it didn't come. A beam of blue fire descended from the sky, silent, precise, and holy. It obliterated the scout in one clean sweep. As ash scattered, Iron Thunder descended in the distance like a god waking from slumber. A landing pod broke from its belly and streaked toward them. They watched, hand in hand. As it touched down 20 meters away, the door hissed open, and a man stepped out. Ivan Thorne wasn't sure what he expected. He saw her slumped against a tree, dirt on her cheeks, blood on her clothes, holding the hand of a half-dead man, who looked like every file he'd read and every nightmare he'd dreamed. But it wasn't the man who stopped him. It was her. Nera Salvan, the medic whose voice had called the Titans back, the woman who, in her refusal to leave a dying stranger behind, had reignited Earth's oldest flame. I'm Ivan Thorne, he said, crouching beside her. You activated us. You're with Earth Command. Not anymore. I fly a ghost. Her smile was tired. Thank God for ghosts. He motioned to Lyro, who stepped from the pod with a medkit. We'll get you stabilized, she said. You both need evac, and fast. What about the other Titans? Nera asked. Stormbreaker and Void Stalker are en route. They'll form a defense perimeter. Lorne's force under human protection now. Nera leaned against Tarek, exhausted but relieved. He's not the enemy, she said quietly. He might be the reason we survive. Ivan looked at the man. He's also carrying encrypted data we haven't seen in over 100 years. I'll make sure you get it. But he lives, deal, Ivan said. Now come on. We've got a ship waiting. They lifted off minutes later as Iron Thunder took them aboard. Nera watched the valley shrink below. Lyral checked her vitals, gave her a stim patch, and offered a rare smile. You did good. Not good enough, Nera said. Too many. Died. But you didn't. And now maybe, just maybe, that'll matter. Across the cabin, Tarek slept, a monitoring device over his heart. And for the first time, his face was peaceful. Nera closed her eyes. She had no idea what came next. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't alone anymore. Above them, the stars shifted. And in the void, something ancient stirred. Not Zephyrian, not human. But watching. And waiting. Because if Earth's titans could return, then so could the enemy they were built to stop. Space looked calm, but peace was never silent for long. Inside Iron Thunder, the Titan-class warship that had returned from the abyss of history, Ivan Thorne stood at the forward bridge, staring through reinforced glass at the remains of the destroyed Zephyrian fleet. Fire still drifted in low orbit over Lorne's 4. Wreckage spun like frozen confetti. Flashes of lightning like energy crackled now and then from dying cores, and below, the planet's surface continued to burn quietly in the dark. Beside him, Lyral Khan sat at the helm, eyes locked on the control panel. She hadn't said much in hours. You're thinking too hard, Ivan said gently. I'm thinking exactly the right amount, she replied. About the others, about Nera, about Tarek, about what comes next, and whether we're going to survive long enough for it to matter. Ivan turned to her. We survived long enough for them to find each other. Maybe that's what matters. Lyral gave him a look, one of those small, half-laughing ones that meant, you're not wrong, but you're still a fool. Then she added softly, I didn't come back to the fleet for them. Ivan raised an eyebrow. No, she said, standing. I came back for you. Before he could say anything else, an alert sounded. The map holo lit up red. Atlas spoke. Unauthorized dimensional breach detected. Origin, non-Zephyrian. Anomaly class, unknown. Ivan's chest tightened. Repeat that. Anomaly confirmed. Gravitational signature does not match any recorded vessel. Location, Sector 12 Beta, within strike range of Void Stalker. Can you show us? Lyral asked. The display shifted. An image blurry, distorted showed a tear in space like cracked glass, jagged and pulsing, and from it, a silhouette, smooth, curved like bone, glowing dimly at the seams. Not Zephyrian, not human. Something else. Something old. Lyrl exhaled. Is that a ship? Ivan didn't answer right away. Atlas did. Object classification, unknown origin. Estimated build cycle, pre-human galactic era. Alert status, red. We've got a problem, Lyral said. And it's not just political anymore, Ivan added grimly. This is something worse. In the medical wing of Iron Thunder, Nera Salvan sat beside Tarek's recovery pod. He was asleep again, breathing slow, skin pale. The med unit's soft light glowed around him like a fragile shell. His heart rate was stable, but something in his brainwaves had started to change. Nera frowned, watching the monitor. The sequences were evolving, spiking with mathematical bursts that didn't match normal recovery. They looked like encoded transmissions, a whisper of data, a pattern inside him, like something was trying to speak through him. You're not just a defector, she murmured. You're a key. She touched the glass. Her heart ached. She hadn't meant to fall in love, not with someone so broken, not when she was breaking, but in the fire. He'd stayed. When death came for them, he'd thrown his body between her and the blast. Even half-conscious, he'd whispered her name like it was worth more than survival. And that mattered. Maybe it always had. The door hissed behind her. Nera didn't turn. She already knew who it was. Lyrl single quotes S voice was soft. We need to talk. About what? About what's coming, and why we need him. Nera stood. Her voice was cool. You want to use him? No, Lyral said. I want to save him. But to do that, we have to understand him, and that means letting him do what he was built for. Nera turned. He's not a tool. He's the only one who's seen what's coming. That breach in Sector 12, it wasn't meant for the Zephyrians. It was meant for us. What are you saying? Lyral crossed her arms. I'm saying, Your boyfriend might be the only person in the galaxy who can talk to whatever's on the other side." Hours later, Tarek woke. The first thing he saw was Nera's face. The second was the silver light of Iron Thunder's medical bay ceiling. And the third was something no one else saw. "It's coming," he whispered. "What is?" His voice was hoarse. "I don't know what they called it, but the Zephyrians were afraid of it. It was buried under layers of memory, hidden inside me when I escaped." He looked up at her, tears in his eyes. "They used me as a transmitter. I'm not just remembering code. I'm broadcasting it. Something's listening." Nera's blood ran cold. "You mean that breach?" He nodded. "I didn't open it, but I pointed the way." He tried to sit up, wincing. "I need to interface with Atlas," he said. "I think I can show you what they saw." In the core chamber of Iron Thunder, surrounded by humming machinery, Atlas interface node blinked to life as Tarek connected. A thick halo of holographic data spun around him, memories, blueprints, ancient diagrams. And in the center, a shape like a sun dying in reverse. Trek spoke as the images unfolded. They called it the Duskfall. Not a species, not a fleet, not a war machine, but a process, a universal end condition that consumes star systems when galactic civilizations grow too loud. "Why haven't we heard of it before?" Ivan asked. "Because it only activates when enough civilizations light up the dark. The Zephyrians delayed it. The Titans buried the last breach. But now, it's awake again." Nera stood close beside him, her hand gripping his. "Can we stop it?" "No," he said. "But we can delay it, or redirect it." "How?" Tarek turned slowly toward the others. "By giving it something to love." Silence fell. "What the hell does that mean?" Lyral asked. "It doesn't understand war," Tarek explained. "It understands patterns, connections, unity. If we can show it something strong enough, some meaning behind the noise, it might look away." Nera frowned. "Like what?" Tarek smiled faintly. "Like us. They launched a new plan, not a fleet assault, not a bombardment. A message. The Titans had been built for war, but they carried something far more ancient, emotional memory cores, collective experience, the joy and terror of billions encoded into data. Atlas could deliver that, but it needed more. It needed an anchor. So Nera and Tarek volunteered. Their bond, raw, unfiltered, honest, was recorded in a neural stream and sent to Iron Thunder's transmission system. "This is madness," Lyral said. Ivan smiled. "Madness built the Titans. It's only fair it saves us too." They stood on the forward deck, side by side. Nera's single quotes S voice spoke softly into the link. "We are not weapons. We are not your prey. We are the reason stars were born, and we will not go quietly." Atlas amplified the signal. The breach flared. And then something answered. Not words, not images. Just feeling, a tidal wave of grief, of curiosity, of hunger. And then pause. Hesitation. And slowly a retreat. Hours passed. The breach closed. No new ones opened. The unknown vanished into silence. And the stars brightened once more. Nera sat with Tarek, now stabilized, healed as much as he could be. They were in Iron Thunder's observation chamber, a glass bubble that showed the curve of Lorne's for below. "I thought we'd die," she said quietly. "Me too, but we didn't. We loved a beat." She looked at him. "You really believe that's what saved us?" He nodded. "Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't a weapon. I was something worth protecting." She smiled. "You still are." He kissed her then, slow and soft and sure. And in that moment, there were no Titans, no wars, no breaches. Just them, alive. And choosing each other, somewhere deep in the dark. The Duskfall watched. Curious. But dash for now content, because in the vast cold between galaxies, it had found something new. Something beautiful, something shaped like love. 3 weeks had passed since the breach. The Galactic Council reconvened in orbit above Cerna Prime neutral ground, newly reconstructed after decades of war. Towering spires of chrome and stone gleamed above oceans dyed purple by native algae. 1,000 ships from 100 worlds drifted like petals around its gravity well. Inside the high dome of the council chamber, silence reigned. And then the human envoy entered. Not a commander, not a warlord, Not even a politician. Nara Salvin walked in with her medical jacket worn proudly, a bandage still wrapping her left wrist, and the quiet calm of someone who had already died a dozen times and chosen to live anyway. Beside her was Tarek VIN. No longer the Sci-Fi host of Zephyrian Fear, no longer hunted, no longer running. He had traded implants for skin, for peace, for a voice. The council stared as they approached. Humans had returned, but not as conquerors. They returned with proof and a plea. In the chambers above, Atlas broadcast the recording of the Duskfall encounter. Emotion converted into light, light converted into memory. Memory into warning. And then into understanding. The Duskfall hadn't been an empire. It wasn't a weapon. It was nature wearing a darker shape, a force that emerged when civilization forgot itself, when growth outpaced meaning, when noise drowned out love. The Zephyrians had triggered it by silencing worlds. The Titans had stopped it not with fire, but with connection, and humans, of all species, had remembered something ancient, that survival alone was never enough. They had remembered to care. After the council dissolved, after speeches were given and agreements drafted, Nara found herself alone beneath the stars again. Not literally. She was on Void Stalker now, her favorite of the Titans. It felt less like a ship and more like a question with engines. The glass corridor stretched long and silent before her, giving a perfect view of the curve of open space. The stars shimmered, unbothered by everything she'd lived through. Nara leaned on the railing, her mind adrift. Until soft footsteps came behind her. "You're thinking too loud," Tarek said, his voice a bomb. "You always say that. You always are." She smiled, not looking at him. "They still don't trust us, you know. They don't have to. They just need to believe us. And what if they forget again? What if they go back to war and noise and power?" He stepped beside her, brushed his fingers across hers. "Then we remind them." She turned, his eyes no longer glowing, no longer cold, were softer now, still full of pain, but also full of choice. "How?" she asked. "We live," he said. "We build, we heal, like you always have. And he hesitated. "I do it beside you, if you'll let me." Her throat tightened, the stars blurred. "You don't have to ask," she whispered. "You already did, every time you stayed." He leaned forward, forehead against hers. "Then stay with me," he said. "Always." "I've back on Earth." The Titan facilities began to shut down again, not as weapons this time, but as guardians in rest. The Titans were not destroyed, they were remembered. And in deep oceanic cathedrals, they would dream quietly, ready to rise again, only if needed, but not to lead. Not anymore. Earth's place in the galaxy would not be as a power of fleets or force, but as something more subtle. A quiet protector. A voice in the noise. A reminder. A year later, on the moon of Venthra 6, a new hospital ship was christened. Its name, the Healing Vow. Its crew, drawn from every corner of the galaxy. Zephyrians served beside humans. Even those who once bombed colonies now carried stretchers, injected medicine, cried in hallways after losing patients they fought to save. The ship didn't fly flags of conquest, only white stripes of peace. And to names engraved in its hull. Nara Salvin Tarek Vienet heroes. Not legends. Just people who chose love when hate was easier. Vithi lived quietly after that, on a small orbital station built from recycled Titan parts and overgrown with ivy, flowers, and warmth. They wrote books. They taught young minds about connection over conflict. They made coffee that sometimes exploded from the recycled brew units. They adopted a stray cyberfox named Nido. They argued, made up, loved harder. They woke from nightmares and held each other through them. And every now and then, they still woke up at night, afraid the stars might open again. But the stars stayed shut, because someone was watching, someone was remembering, and that made all the difference. Veils were in the galaxy, remnants stirred. Old wounds festered, tensions simmered. But on 1,000 small worlds, ships marked with white stripes arrived. They carried medicine, and translators, and hope. They asked no questions of the wounded, only how they could help. They left no flags behind. Only stories, and one name whispered again and again: the Healing Vow. A ship that never fired a shot, but stopped the end of the galaxy anyway. Viand in the void between galaxies where light fades and time thins, the duskfall waited. Listening, learning, and, for the first time in eternity, it chose silence, not to strike, but to wonder, because somewhere, amid all the stars, love had answered back, and it was louder than war.